I just got the DJI Mini 3 Pro. Now, I know I'm a little bit late to the party. This has been out for a while, but I'm usually not much of an early adopter. I'd rather let other people get all the kinks worked out rather than getting one of the first potentially buggy units. And one of the main reasons that I decided to get this drone is because I'm going to be going to Europe here in a few weeks, and I wanted to have a drone that is under 250 grams so that I can fly in more places and be more compliant with the regulations. Now, before we start unboxing this, the first thing that I noticed when I got this is just how light this package is. This is the whole package from B&H. Actually, it doesn't have the controller because I already have a controller, but this whole package with the drone and everything in it is lighter than the empty box from my DJI Air 2S. So let's go ahead and see what's inside the box. And there it is, the Mini 3 Pro. Pretty small. This is definitely a lot smaller than the box for the Air 2S. Now, as I mentioned, I got the Mini 3 Pro without the controller because I already have a couple of the regular RCN1 controllers. The controller with the built-in screen looks really nice, but at this point it isn't compatible with my Air 2S, which is probably what I'll actually keep using in the future more than this Mini 3 Pro. So I'm holding off on getting the controller with the screen until it's compatible with the Air 2S. So let's get the wrapper off and see what's inside. And here is our drone. This thing is so small. Why do they put so much tape on these gimbals? So one of the things that I'm really excited to test out on this drone is the ability of the gimbal to point almost straight up. That is something that I saw originally on the Parrot Anafi. I always thought that would be really cool to be able to look up what's above you, like when you're flying under the trees or something. And so I'm really excited to have that capability to go almost straight up on this drone. It'll be fun to try that out, see what kind of creative shots I can get with it. And just comparing this with my Air 2S, you can see the Mini 3 Pro is actually not that much smaller, but it is far lighter. This one feels like a brick compared to this one. I think a lot of it is just trimming things down in the design, not using as heavy duty plastic in the arms. This has a metal bottom. The Mini 3 is just plastic on the bottom, just little tweaks like that to make it a lot lighter. And also just looking at the design of these two drones, one thing that I really like is the fact that you have your SD card slot open right here on the back, rather than having to open up a little door on the side like here on the Air 2S, and then you can get to your SD card. On the Mini 3 Pro, you can just pop it straight into the back, no extra hassling around. Now, one thing with these batteries that's different from the batteries on other DJI drones, on most DJI drones there's some kind of little button and lights on the batteries so you can see how much juice they have in them. But on the Mini 3 Pro, you have to push this little button here on the back of the drone. You have to put them into the drone to see if they're charged. Not super ideal, but I understand why they did that to save on weight in each battery. So now I just need to get the batteries charged on this and get this drone up in the air and see how it flies, see what kind of video it can shoot, and I'll get back to you once I've done that. So now it's been a couple weeks since I got the Mini 3 Pro, and I've used it a fair bit over this time, and all in all, I have really enjoyed it. One of the biggest things that stood out to me is just how light and small it is. And that is great for portability, being able to just fit it in a backpack. You can even conceivably fit it in your pocket, although it is a pretty tight fit. Now, of course, because it is designed to be lighter, I don't think the build quality is quite as high as the Air 2 and Air 2S that I have over here. They're just a little bit more solid, more heavy plastic in the arms. They have a metal bottom, etc. But the Mini 3 Pro doesn't by any means feel like it's going to break, and you obviously have to use lighter materials if you're going to make the drone lighter. Now, another thing that I really like about the Mini 3 is that it's a lot quieter than my other drones. As a matter of fact, it's probably quieter than any other drone I've flown besides the older Minis. And not only is it quieter, but the noise isn't super high-pitched and irritating, which again helps you to be lower profile, not attract as much attention when you're flying if you don't want unwanted attention. Now, of course, one of the most important things on a camera drone, if not the most most important is the camera. And the camera on this drone is really, really great. I'm actually really impressed. I'd say it's better than I expected. The shots out of it are really clean, has nice low noise. It's way, way better than the Air 2, which is the other drone from DJI that has a dual 1248 megapixel camera. Now, of course, the image sensor in this one is bigger, but I was afraid that it would still have some of the noise problems that this drone had. But the Mini 3 does not have the same problems with noise in the images like the Air 2 did. And the images also have good detail, nothing to complain about there. Now, as far as the colors coming out of this drone, the 10-bit D-Cinelike footage grades really nicely. I haven't done direct tests. I will do those in my full review. Subscribe if you want to see that. But I don't think you can push it quite as far before it starts to fall off as the 10-bit D-Log from the Air 2S. Now, it's definitely a lot better than the D-Cinelike from the Mavic Air 2, which was only 8-bit, so the 10-bit has made a big improvement, but I still think that D-Log has a slight edge in color grading flexibility. And this drone also has great dynamic range. It has some kind of an HDR mode up to 4K 30, and it's not some kind of a weird HDR mode that sometimes flickers and has different weird artifacts and only works in auto exposure mode like on the Air 2. It just basically increases the dynamic range of the video footage. It works in D-Cinelike and just gives you a nice little bump in dynamic range over the 4K 60 footage that doesn't have the HDR mode. Now again, I haven't tested these side by side, but I think that the dynamic range is on par with the Air 2S, even with its larger sensor. Again, I'm going to do an actual side-by-side test in my full review. Now, one interesting thing about the camera on the Mini 3 Pro is that it has a really, really wide aperture. It's a f1.7 aperture compared to f2.8 on these other drones, so you'll need stronger ND filters for the same conditions to get 180-degree shutter speed. Now, some of the new features on this drone, being able to tilt the gimbal up 60 degrees is really great. I like the way they designed this to enable the gimbal to tilt up, but it's still nice and protected. Anyway, I like the design of this so that the gimbal can tilt up and see what's above the drone. It enables you to have some really nice creative shots, creative opportunities that you wouldn't have if you could only tilt it up to 30 degrees like on previous drones. And another feature of the design of this gimbal is that you can flip the camera to vertical for photos or social media. I find that really handy because I like to shoot vertical photos many times and you couldn't do that on older drones. And also for Instagram, Reels, TikTok, whatever. If you're creating content for that, it's great to be able to shoot vertical video and not have to crop into 16:9 horizontal. And then some other features that I noticed about this drone, the GPS lock time on this thing is really good. You don't have to wait around for a long time. I'd say it's actually probably better than the Air 2S. Battery life is also really good, on par with other DJI drones, no complaints there. But I do really love the fact that the batteries charge by USB. And I've just been charging them in the multi-charger off of my MacBook Pro charger, which is like 150 watts. I think it can only use technically up to 30, but apparently if you use a higher wattage charger with the multi-charger, it will actually charge the batteries faster. But it's just really nice to have that flexibility to be able to charge off of a USB charger rather than having to drag around some huge dedicated charging brick. Another thing with battery life is that it doesn't start auto landing as soon as the Air 2S and Air 2 do. I'm not sure why this is, but I actually really like it because sometimes I'm pretty close to home and just want to squeeze the last little bit of juice out of the batteries and get just a couple more shots, and I don't want it to just all of a sudden start auto landing when I still have like 12 or 10% of battery left. This one seems to wait till like maybe 4, 5, 6-ish% battery, something like that, maybe 8%, I'm not sure exactly, but it doesn't kick in as soon, and so you can squeeze out a few more shots. Just be careful with this, you don't want your drone falling out of the sky. Now, this drone obviously isn't quite as fast as the Air 2 and Air 2S. I really like how fast these are, but I actually didn't miss the extra speed on the Mini 3 Pro as much as I thought I would. We'll see how it does over the next few weeks on my trip to Europe, and I'll report back on the performance in my full review. But I have to say it's a very nimble little drone because it doesn't have as much mass. I think it can change direction and maneuver around a little bit better. Now, one thing that I'm not super impressed with is the control range on this thing. It can actually go quite a ways, maybe even as far as some of these, but sometimes even when it's fairly close, it will like start showing low bars or even completely cut out. So it just doesn't seem to have quite as solid of a connection as these larger drones. And one last thing that I noticed that I wasn't super stoked about, and that is obstacle avoidance. Now, it is good at stopping and not running into obstacles. I did some tests on that, but it just does not seem to be able to figure out how to go around obstacles. Now, the Air 2 and Air 2S, they do a great job of this. They can get around trees, around branches, around all kinds of things. They seem to know this is how you get around something. But I did a whole bunch of tests with this, and even when you were flying like just right next to something where it could very easily just fly around, it just stops and won't go past. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It doesn't seem to have the greatest obstacle avoidance as far as moving around things, but that's not really a big issue for me personally because I don't really rely on obstacle avoidance. I just fly manually to stay out of things. Many times I'll even turn obstacle avoidance off so I can fly in smaller spaces. But that is something to keep in mind if you want to use it for active tracking through complex environments. Anyway, I have to say, all in all, this is an absolutely fantastic drone, especially if you travel a lot or if you live in a country where larger drones have a lot more restrictions. And if that's you, I would definitely recommend getting this drone. Now, if you don't travel a lot and 250 grams doesn't really matter, the Air 2S might be my pick depending on what you want to use it for. There's just trade-offs. This has some features the Air 2S doesn't. Air 2S has some features the Mini 3 Pro doesn't. It's just kind of a toss-up. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a more in-depth review of the Mini 3 Pro once I get a little bit more time with this drone. I'm going to be leaving in just a couple days on a 3-week trip to Europe. And so in the full review, I'll share some footage from that trip, how it performed in different conditions, and also do some more controlled tests of the drone to see how it stacks up against other drones. And if you want to see that full review, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss it when we release it. And while it's a lot of fun to talk about and play with the latest and greatest drones, what drone you fly is actually a very small part of creating great cinematic drone videos. What actually determines if your drone videos are going to look amazing or not is not the drone you fly, it's actually the skills of the person who's flying it, and then of course editing and color grading the footage after the fact. And so if you want to improve your drone filmmaking skills, I put together a complete drone filmmaking course that teaches you everything you need to know to create professional cinematic drone videos like what you always see from DJI when they release a new drone. I show you what settings to use, how to compose your shots and create dynamic movements, how to edit your videos, and how to color grade your shots, just to name a few of the things that you'll learn inside Flying Filmmaker. And if you want to check that out, you can go to flyingfilmmakerpro.com, or there'll also be a link down in the description. Or if you're not ready to join the full course, I've just created a brand new starter course where I've condensed all of the essentials of drone filmmaking into an affordable 7-day drone filmmaking challenge. And a link to that is down in the description as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little unboxing and first impressions video. As always, it helps if you like this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll see you in our next video.